What's up everybody, Matt Maran here for another car review. This is of course the 2020 Mercedes-Benz GLE 450. Huge thanks to Mercedes for providing us with this very sweet GLE to review for you guys today. So about the 2020 GLE, well, it's all new. It's a completely new generation, and it definitely looks a lot different because, previously the GLE, which was rebadged from, the MLs of the past, they just, looked okay, but this looks a lot sleeker to me and falls in line with the GLC. It's a little bit larger than that, of course, and even compared to the old GLE, the wheelbase is 3.1 inches longer now, so it's definitely, got a little more substantiality to it than it did before. But right up front there, you have these headlamps, which are very cool. I like the little blue accents you have in them, as well as the LEDs. You get two LED streaks that are going up instead of just the one on the GLC. You just have that really nice grille that I always love on these Mercedes with those kind of wings that go out. And otherwise, now this one doesn't have the Amg Appearance Package. You can get that here on the 450s and even on the standard ones, and that would give it a lot more sportier looks. This one looks a little more mundane, and honestly, the only thing that suggests that this is sporty really are these wheels. You have these 21-inch wheels here, and the wheels alone are pretty big, being 21 inches, but then the tire setup. So we got 275s on the front, which isn't remarkable, but out back we got 315 wide tires, and whenever you look at the back end, it really looks meaty there. It looks like it's some type of, supercar or something with those wide rear tires, but that certainly helps with the handling and everything. But that's just the only other hint you have that this is really a much more sportier SUV than it looks like it is. Going out back there, though, you have, the typical, again, new Mercedes design language out back, and it looks very, very good. It's sleek and conservative. They're not going with anything radical. They're not trying to really catch your eye a whole lot. It's just very understated, but very good looking. And so from every angle, I think the new GLE is definitely an improvement over the old one. Right, for the interior of the GLE, well, it is so mind-blowingly good. They just knocked it out of the park. Not only for Mercedes, but just for the entire class of vehicle this is in. It is just, such a nice interior. But anyway, first thing, sitting down in these seats, you have these very nice, soft, comfortable seats here in the GLE that are heated, they're ventilated, and they even have massage. Now, that's all optional stuff. But man, oh man, these seats are just so nice feeling. And yeah, you can customize them in a million different ways. You can adjust the bolstering and all that kind of stuff so they can be as wide or as tight as you like. And they're just so comfortable. And also Mercedes has some of the best massage seats in the business as well. And so, all those things just add up for an amazing seat. Next is the steering wheel here in the GLE, which is very, very nice. Now this one has a little bit more gloss black on it than some of the other new Mercedes steering wheels, which have a little bit of metal. I think that depends on what option packages you get and trim and stuff like that. But this is still a very, very nice steering wheel. It has a great 9-3 grip, nice silky smooth leather, great 10 and 2 notches, and still lots of metal here that's cool to the touch. It just feels really nice with these little touch pads in order to change different things on the gauge cluster as well, which is great. And you even have paddle shifters here behind the wheel, which is also great to see. And another thing, while we're in this area, is they even redesigned the stocks for the windshield wipers, the gear shifter, the turn signal stocks. Even they have nice metal trim inlaid into them here and just look really cool. Who restyles their turn signal stocks whenever they redo a vehicle? Nobody. They've been the same forever and everything. And so, literally every square inch of this vehicle is nice. It's insane. Next, though, are the gauges here. Now, you have dual 12.3-inch widescreen displays that are so high resolution, so great. I love these gauges. They are so customizable. You can have different appearances for them, for sportiness or minimalism, whatever you want to go for. You have it all there. You can also, show your maps on there. You can show, your safety equipment, your media, whatever you want to display on there. And it's not even okay, you can have a little bit in the middle, but it's do you want the left circular pod to be one thing or another? You can have whatever you want in each of the circles. You can have whatever you want in the middle. You can change the look for the whole thing. It is just mind-blowing to me just how adjustable they are. Probably some of my favorite digital gauges, if not the favorite in the industry right now. It's so cool looking. You also have a heads-up display, which also you can customize, and you can have like 3 different things on the heads-up display if you want. You can, and there's all kinds of things to choose from, whether you want to show the angle of, you know, how the car is sitting, or any kind of sporty stuff or safety stuff, media stuff, whatever you want. Again, it's just amazing, the customization here, and owning one of these would be fantastic, because once you get everything down into all of your favorites and you sit in here for an afternoon and get everything tweaked to exactly the way you want it, I mean, it is going to be like amazing to live with, I think. And so yeah, fantastic gauges. Coming over to the center of the dashboard here, again, you see that other 12.3-inch display, which is now touchscreen, which makes it even better. I mean, I would have even dealt with a rotary knob, or, you know, this touchpad, which it still does have, if I had to. But this touchscreen is within easy reach. It's so responsive. It works great. And again, so much customization. There's different themes. You can you know, change everything, or you can just change the appearance of it. You can customize what you see first. And it's just so easy to reach everything. It's so simplified. And BMW should take notes from this, because the new iDrive system is so complicated. They want to pack with a million features, but it makes my head hurt trying to navigate the iDrive system, even with its now touchscreen ability as well. This is just, it's so much cleaner, so much easier. But if you want to dive in to advanced options, you can still do that, but you don't have to. Just on the surface, you can get all the basics done very easily, and I love it. It is hands down better than the BMW system in my opinion, and this is just fantastic. The maps all look great. Radio stuff all looks great. I do wish there was still a tune knob. That's the only little thing I can complain about, because you have to hit on the screen there to change that, or you can use the steering wheel controls, or you can use your voice, because this has the new MBUX system built into it as well, which does all kinds of stuff from augmented navigation. So it'll actually show you on the map like a live view of your front camera and showing you where you need to turn. Stuff like that's very cool. But you know, with the MBUX system, you can say, "Hey Mercedes," and it'll wake up and you know, answer any question you have, really, or change things. You want to make it cooler or hotter. You don't have to be very rigid. You can just be like, "I'm cold," and it'll automatically say, "All right, well, we'll put it up 2 degrees." And if you want to tweak it more, you can. But it's very intelligent. This whole system is fantastic. It also has standard Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, which is great, and overall, just cannot say enough good things about that infotainment system. And then this also has this Burmeister stereo, which has these beautiful speakers, and the sound experience in here is just, it'll knock your socks off. It is so impressive with the sound too. So I mean, on all fronts, this whole vehicle just, again, this interior is mind-blowing. It really, really is. Another thing, while we're looking at trim and stuff, the wood is beautiful. I love the kind of striping you have through it. You also have all this ambient lighting running across everything in here, and that's awesome, and you can change what color you want that, and there's a million different colors to pick from. So again, I love the customization. That is really what it's all about, I think, for luxury, and really Mercedes just nails it. Anyway, you got 4 vents here beneath those screens. You have, again, beautiful knurled metal switches and levers here to control your climate. Coming back, you have, you know, a few other buttons here, but again, Mercedes, or, you know, with BMW, they have, I don't know, like 20 buttons in this area. Here, what do we have? Like 6 or 7 buttons, and that's it. And then you got a couple little toggles here for your suspension stuff, if you want to dig into that. Otherwise, that's it. You have a little touchpad. If you don't want to touch the screen, you can use that, and it's very responsive, works very well too. And so, again, I don't even know what to suggest. There is nothing I can complain about in this interior. Everything is nice. Even the padding, you know, down by like where your knees rest is all padded. Every single square inch of this vehicle feels expensive and nice. It is truly remarkable. Storage space in the GLE is also quite good. So first off, in the doors here, you have a pretty good sized pocket with a bottle holder, which is very wide and great there. Coming over to the center here, you have this whole area that slides back, and then you have a good amount of space. So you have, you know, 2 large cup holders, which are also heated or cooled cup holders too, which is sweet. That's an option, but it does have that, which is great. And then you have this wireless charging pad here, and I'm assuming you can get it without a wireless charging pad. You'd have a little bit of a bigger bin there, but it's great because it's actually a little bit padded and like soft too, and it's rubberized, so it holds it in place well. You also see in that area 2 USB-C jacks, and then you also have a traditional power outlet. So if you want to plug in a normal USB in there, you're going to have to use an adapter, and so that's unfortunate for Apple users, but you know, some of these Android phones having the USB-C, no issues there for them. And then coming back, you have this center armrest, which splits in the middle and opens up. And then you have, a little bit of a shallower space. You have this little removable tray, and then you also will see another USB-C jack in there, and also another little holder here for your phone. And so that's nice. Now, compared to the normal large crossovers in this segment, or even within like a segment beneath, like if the non-luxury stuff in this segment, like the Honda Passport, for example, just off the top of my head, has way more storage space than this does. So, compared to the more utilitarian vehicles, this is, not a ton of storage space, but still should be sufficient for most people, I think. But it would be nice to have maybe a slightly deeper bin up front here or something. Backseat space in the GLE here is, again, just amazing. It's really hard to not gush. But so, they made this whole wheelbase 3.1 inches longer, and so you have a much more spacious backseat than you did previously. And so I'm 5'9", and me sitting behind myself, I don't know, I have like maybe a foot of legroom to spare back there. It is so spacious. Those seats do also recline. They also slide forwards and backwards if you'd like. So that's with the seat all the way back. Now, you can do a third row in the GLE. I still wouldn't suggest it. It's not going to be a very good third row. You're going to be better off just going for the GLS if you want a third row and have, the actual dedicated third row built in, and that's what that vehicle is built for. This, I think, is really ideal as a two-row vehicle, and it's just really, really great back there. You also have heated seats, and you have a pocket in those doors. You also have a fold-down center armrest with 2 cup holders built into it. And then looking forward, you'll see your dedicated air vents and a tri-zone climate control, so you can adjust the temperature back there. Also, you will see 2 more USB-C jacks back there. And there's also a little slide-out area there with a little cubby. And then you also see a traditional like house current power outlet there as well, which is great. So if you want to just power up stuff and you don't want to use USB-C, you still have another option back there, which is also great. And I mean, just it's such a spacious back seat. Headroom and everything is great too. And so overall, I don't think you can get much better in a back seat for a vehicle in this class. Trunk space in the GLE is also really good. So it's not, I wouldn't say it's like best in class. It's not enormous or anything, but it still should be plenty of space. And again, if you want more space, you can slide the seats forward, and then that should give you some more space there in the back if you need a little bit more length there. But still a good amount of space. And you open up the floor there, and you will see it's not like a nice finished cubby, but you do have a bunch of space under the floor there as well if you want. So with those two things combined, I think you've right about with what you would expect for a vehicle of this class. And again, if you want some extra cargo space, you can get a GLS, which is now all new as well, and fold down that third row and have a ton of space back there if you really need additional length for the cargo area. All right, so start and go for a drive. The GLE here has the new Mercedes key, but this one, interestingly, doesn't have the gloss piano black finishes like the G-Wagon key, for example. And so it's a matte black instead. So not quite as expensive feeling, but you still have the metal here on the bottom, and still is a very nice key. Same, pretty thin key too. I really like this key. So even though it's not quite as fancy as the G-Wagon key, still very nice. It's of course keyless access, keyless entry, and push button start. So you just leave the key in your pocket, hit the engine start button, and it starts right up. All right, so setting off in the GLE 450 4MATIC. Well, first thing you notice, I don't even know. The first thing I think I'm noticing is this heads-up display and just how big it is. I mean, you really have the information very large and dominant, and I think you can actually shrink it too. But I mean, so right now I have a G meter as well as my speed limit and this actual speed I'm going here on the heads-up display, and that's very cool. Other things to note here, though, it's actually fairly easy to see out of the GLE here. So you have all the driver assistance features. There are so many of them, but even just for parking, there's a bunch. And so it's great to have the bird's eye view and all that type of stuff, but then you also have all the advanced safety tech, that these have of assisting you in every possible conceivable way, for the most part, aside from it driving itself for you. But otherwise, very easy. But one thing as far as visibility goes, you have a little bit of a thicker A-pillar here. That's something also like the competing vehicle like the X5 also has a very thick A-pillar. I don't know what it is with German vehicles, German SUVs, and thick A-pillars, but they all have them. They all have the mirrors right there on the A-pillar mounted there and stuff, which isn't great. But you can sit up pretty high here in the GLE, so it shouldn't be too big of an issue. View out of the back is also pretty good in typical SUV fashion, so no surprises there. And so overall, still a fairly easy vehicle to drive in that regard. But we have a few corners coming up, so I'm going to put it into what's called curve mode. So this has the E-Active Body Control System, which is an $8,000 option, but it gives you this, since we have this 48 volt mild hybrid setup, that 48 volts allows you to have better power to this active suspension. I mean, it can dance, it can move all over the place, but in this curve mode, it will actually lean into corners like a motorcycle, and I'm doing it here, and I don't know if you can see that from the camera, but it is insane how this thing leans. It is unlike anything I've ever experienced in an automobile in my life. The way that it leans, it is. So I mean, forget about body roll. There is no such thing as body roll. Not only that, but like your whole body is pitched into the corner, like again you're riding a bike or something, which is truly insane. It makes me feel like I can do 150 around these corners without breaking a sweat, because wow, this suspension is so. I mean, it can balance itself out of like getting stuck. So if you're in sand or snow, it can bounce its way out. I mean, this suspension is, I think, the coolest suspension setup I've ever seen on a car so far, and it's really amazing. And now this is something this although it's an $8,000 option, just the fact that you can lean into corners alone, that justifies it on its own. But it's just so customizable. So you have normal sport modes if you just want a flat ride. There's also comfort mode, and I mean, it actually is so advanced that it will use the cameras to scan the road ahead for bumps and imperfections, and then preload the suspension so that it will have the right settings to minimize those impacts. And so we'll go ahead and play with that here in a second. There's also off-road modes and stuff like that, but we'll go ahead and just put it into the comfort mode here. And it is so smooth, and it just feels great. And you have a really natural steering weight here too in the GLE. It's not too heavy, not too light. It just feels right to me. It's a little bit on the sportier side, but I really, really like it. Also, brakes have a very meaty feel to them. Feel really, really good. Throttle response is a little bit on the lazy side here in comfort mode, but that's not really fair because we are in the comfort mode. If we go up to there's sport, and there's also sport plus. We'll just even do sport here just for the time being, and then it gets a little more responsive. I will say it still is a tiny bit laggy. I think part of it is because with this 48 volt system we have this EQ boost, and so that can provide you with 21 extra horsepower and 184 extra pound-feet of torque. And so you can see it's kind of like a hybrid, like a normal traditional hybrid with that, where you can see this little gauge at the bottom where it'll charge and kind of regen a little bit. It's mild. It's not like an aggressive regen where you're like slamming the brakes just by coasting, but it has that power, and so you can use that. It'll give you a little bit of an electric boost there, and that it kind of relies on that. It wants to use that before it wants to use a downshift. But because you have the paddle shifters here, if I'm like, oh, I want a downshift, I just pull the paddle, wait a second, and then it goes. So I do wish that was a little bit more sporty in its setup. We'll try bumping it up to Sport Plus mode here and see if that changes it. So that's, I think, a little bit more of a better response there. But it's still, if you don't have it in a dedicated manual mode, it still takes a second for it to respond. Honestly, the G-Wagon, the G550, had a little bit of a faster response. But we'll go ahead and toggle on the manual mode here. And so now it knows I want to be in manual mode, and let's see if that gets any better here. Yeah, it's still a little laggy. I'm kind of disappointed. The G-Wagon seemed a lot faster, and I think they used both the same 9-speed automatic transmission. But yeah, not quite as responsive. So that's the only thing that's a little disappointing is the transmission. I wish this was quicker to react. That's something that took me by surprise, honestly. We'll go ahead and pop it out of the manual mode here and let it do its own thing, because that is generally going to be where you get the best results anyway. But even in Sport Plus mode here, I was expecting it to be a little bit more aggressive with its setup. We're still just kind of coasting at 2,500 RPMs here, and it still feels good, but it's not as impressive as the suspension setup. I just want to keep putting it into that curve mode, because that is the coolest thing. I just cannot get enough of that. But yeah, off-road mode is also very cool. But yeah, this curve mode is that's the winner. That makes me want a GLE on its own, just because it would be so much fun to pitch it into a corner like this and just have it lean the way that it leans. It feels like I'm in like a sports car or something. It's just how light it makes this feel. Even though these weigh about 4,800 pounds, it is just incredible. I don't feel the weight at all. That's usually the thing, because even if you have a nice flat suspension, you sometimes can feel the weight in some of these, you know, big, heavy luxury SUVs, especially SUVs where you're higher up off the ground. But with this, you don't feel the weight because the weight is leaning into the corner with you there. So it's not holding you back. It's not something you're fighting with. Instead, you can kind of use the weight and really power through the corner with stability. And of course, you have the 4MATIC all-wheel drive system, which also gives you stability. Also, these insane rear tires, 315 wide tires in the back, that also gives you stability. All that makes for a vehicle that, again, for just, this isn't even an AMG. Like, I can't imagine how good the AMG versions of this are going to be whenever they come. You know, they already confirmed there's going to be a 53 version, which is the same engine, just with, you know, more electric boost and a little bit of a more aggressive setup. And then, of course, you're going to have the V8 versions as well, which should be very, very sweet as well. But I mean, as a performance machine, I mean, and again, for something that can just be a family SUV, I would have so much enjoyment driving this every day as an enthusiast, putting in that curve mode and winding down a back road. Oh, it would be glorious. And so, yeah, sorry I'm gushing about this suspension. It's just like the coolest thing to me. I think it's really, really creative as well as being just brilliant. But I went ahead and put it into the sport mode here, and let's turn down onto this back road and see how it does. Here we go. Wow. Okay, wow, it's responsive. And wow. All right, this thing moves. I could really feel that electric boost right off the line, and then that engine and the turbo kick in, and then it just hauls the rest of the way. And really, really impressive. So this runs the new Mercedes inline 6, and it's a 3-liter and turbocharged. Does 362 horsepower, 369 pound-feet of torque, and it'll do 0 to 60 in about 5.3 seconds is kind of the estimate given there. And that sounds about right to me. Maybe even a little quicker. But regardless, very, very punchy, and it's an incredibly smooth engine too. That's one thing. I mean, you know, there's always been refinement in most Mercedes engines, but this, it is buttery smooth, and it sounds great too. Man, oh man, and these brakes do a really good job hauling you down to a stop. Really meaty brakes. Again, I know the 450 is kind of the sportier, a little bit sportier than, you know, the normal standard GLE, but man, this thing, it just feels so over-engineered almost in an excellent way, in the best way possible, where I want to like take this thing on a racetrack and it's just a normal family crossover. It's insane. Oh man, but yeah, I mean, it's $8,000 for that suspension. I think it's worth it, but $8,000 is a lot. And I haven't driven, you can also get a normal adaptive suspension and air suspension system in the GLE, and that might be very good as well, but I know for a fact it will not lean into corners for you. And so if you test drive one of these and you love that, that's worth $8,000, I think, alone, because no other vehicle in the world can do what this thing does with leaning into those corners. But if you don't really care that much, save yourself the $8,000, and that'll certainly help keep the pricing reasonable here on a GLE, because the GLE starts at a very reasonable $61,000, and so that's even here for the 450 version. So that's that, but then you add in all of the accessories and the options that this one has, which it has a ton of them. And so because of that, this one's as tested price is $98,725. And so again, it'd be $90,000 if you didn't have the suspension on it. And but that's, the suspension isn't, the only thing. This one just has a bunch of other extra stuff, which is great. But I actually configured one last night with all the stuff I want, all the cool tech stuff still. I didn't include all the safety tech, all the, you can have all the semi-autonomous stuff and driver assistance stuff. That's very cool, but that is also pricey. If you don't care about having a drive and you actually want to drive yourself, I configured one that even had the AMG styling on it for a 450 with the E-Motion body control, and I configured one and it was only $87. That's a lot more reasonable to me, and you still have this sweet suspension setup, you still have the sweet stereo, the massage seats that I did all that kind of stuff in my configuration. So basically, I'm struggling to see where the other, like $11,000 of equipment this has that I didn't configure on the one that I built. but it's, you know, so that's, I think, more accurate. I wouldn't, you know, judge just based on this one. You can still get one that's just as nice, in my opinion, for, you know, in the high 80s. And again, that's still very expensive considering, you know, like a nicely equipped X5 with this inline motor that they have, inline 6. Those, you know, like the one I reviewed was like $74,000. So that's a lot more understandable, a lot more, you know, reasonable, I guess, as far as pricing goes. So BMW might have them beat on pricing, but the Mercedes, like I said in the beginning, knocks out of the park. It's, I mean, so much nicer, miles nicer on the interior. It's easier to use all the tech. You have the suspension that leans, which BMW does not have. The heads-up display is better here. All the, you know, gauges and everything are better. Everything to me is just way sweeter, way more customizable here in the Mercedes. And so despite the price increase, I think the Mercedes is worth the extra money, in my opinion. But like I said, since they started at 61, you can take it very easy on options and still get a $74,000 GLE if you want. And so you know, it's really great how much customization they do give you here with these, and that's one of the really nice things about it. Another corner. I love this thing in curve mode. It's seriously like the coolest thing I've experienced in a car in a good while. Bravo, Mercedes. If you can't tell, I am just obsessed with the GLE. And I have to say that even though I've said the M word multiple times, this assistant hasn't come on and annoyed me. So that's definitely good if I say, "Hey Mercedes,
how can I help you?
Make it a little cooler in here."
I'm setting the temperature to 70 degrees.
And there you have it. It's very, very cool. So I like, it works well for me. Some other journalists here that have been reviewing this have gotten a little annoyed and said it's come on at times when they weren't asking for it. I have had no issues so far, even, like I said, using the M word multiple times. It hasn't come on. So it does a good job for me. I like it a lot. And so overall, yeah, I can't say enough good things about the GLE. I think it's best in class easily. It's not even close. I 100% recommend one, especially if you need an SUV. And usually I'm like, you know, if you don't need the cargo space of an SUV, go for a sedan. You know, go, in this case, go for an E-Class. And an E-Class, you know, would handle better because you have a lower center of gravity, but you don't have this curve mode. Like, I seriously, this whole 48-volt EQ boost system that you have here with this Mercedes is fantastic. You know, it gives you better efficiency too. You have extended stop start, so you know, you can inch up at lights and stuff and not have it come on immediately if you don't need it. And all that kind of stuff is great. And so I love that, you know, you have a little bit of better efficiency, and then whenever you want to use it for power, it has that too. I guess I still wish that this transmission was more responsive. I wish that they had better programming so that it gave me quicker downshifts, that it had quicker manual shifts. All that stuff would be nice. And so that's the only other thing. But you know what? I love everything else about this so much that I don't even care that the transmission isn't super responsive, because you have that EQ boost, and you know, it takes it a second to finally catch on to what you want to do, and that's not ideal, but it's totally fine to me because, again, just how brilliant everything else is here in this vehicle. I totally forgive the transmission. But yeah, you know, an E-Class probably would handle a little bit better because it's, you know, smaller, lower, but since you don't have that curve mode, I honestly think I would rather have this over an E-Class. And that's the first time in my life where between two similar vehicles in the same range that I would rather have the SUV over the sedan. I have never said that before in my life. That's how sweet the GLE is. And I cannot give it a higher endorsement than that, I don't think. So anyway, huge thanks to Mercedes for providing us with this GLE here to review for you guys today. Let me know your thoughts on the GLE in the comments below. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.